Hello everyone, my name is Matt Kyle. I'm with Cequence Security, and today's topic for the webinar is the top 5 API security considerations. So let's get started. I'm a numbers kind of guy, so I have a couple of numbers here on the slide. 23,038, 83%, and 66%. They are the number of APIs published in programmableweb.com's directory. So 23,000 APIs. That's a huge number, and that's just on Programmable Web, and that's just the vendors who have chosen to push the APIs out there. 83% of the web traffic measured by Akamai is API based. Again, think about that for a moment. Typically you would think that the web would be HTML based traffic, whereas now 83% of that is the traffic that we see on the web is coming from APIs. 66% of that number, of the 83%, is coming from devices. Our phones, our tablets, our TVs, our Alexa devices, our IoT devices. So that's staggering. That is a tectonic shift from HTML traffic to API based. Now, when you think about those numbers, you really do understand how APIs are driving the digital transformation of many organizations. There are many other factors that come into play outside of the mobile and device statistics I just mentioned. The move towards microservices, the move towards the componentization of applications to allow developers to be more iterative and get new features out more quickly. Much of that is driven by revolves around APIs, the use of APIs, having those components and those microservices be able to talk to each other. New development methodologies, again, thinking about more agile, more iterative development methodologies is really revolves around the use of APIs. A few of the types of public-facing applications that might be API-driven are shown there in the cloud. I can check my miles, I can share and comment, I can make a purchase, I can join a group, register, or log in. Many of those functions might be a form fill on my web application, or it might be a component of a mobile application that eventually fills in a back-end database. Now, to hammer home the point of the use for the use of APIs for web and mobile. This is a SmartBear State of the API report from 2019. And really what I want to use this slide for is to emphasize the fact that there is a reason behind the use of an API. It gives developers so much more flexibility. It allows them to really do things much more rapidly. And it accelerates the growth of an ecosystem. It allows you to publish an API for a third-party vendors like an aggregator, a travel aggregator, or a financial services aggregator, money management aggregators, that type of thing. The APIs are stateless in nature, so rather than creating an application that has to account for the back and forth of an HTTP transaction, all of the transaction data is included in the API in one fell swoop, so it's easier to put things together. Now, there are obviously going to be security risks. We see them more and more each day in this time of the COVID-19 coronavirus pandemic. We're seeing many of the web conferencing applications being compromised in some way, shape, or form. They are beholden to the numeric IDs that you see on the bottom of the slide here. You can use a bot to numerically find a valid meeting ID and surreptitiously join that meeting if the user has not chosen to use passwords. So A public service announcement is use passwords on your web conferencing, whichever application you're using. Other ways that APIs are exposed to security risks: you can use an API to discover an ID value, much like the Uber attacks that happened a couple years back, where you could find all of the Uber driver information through an exposed API. Screen scraping or content scraping, web scraping, easily done to collect all of the SKU information and then repost that information and sell the product for a lower cost, which is a common practice in some cases. Credential stuffing. Many of the login applications that you and I might use to log into our favorite application are fronted by a web form that is connecting to an API into a database. So the attackers just need to find those APIs and then expose or launch their attacks against that API. Some of the end results of an API attack would be gift card theft, content scraping we already talked a little bit about, denial of inventory or denial of wallet, which is essentially a denial of service attack, and then reputation manipulation, the use of automation to create fake likes, fake reviews, all for the purposes of enhancing or degrading one's reputation. The way that these attacks are executed on the left-hand side, 4 key components are needed. You need credentials, a constantly refreshed set of credentials on the dark web really does make it easy for attackers to get a hold of that information. Infrastructure, compromised IP addresses, bulletproof proxy vendors supply those compromised IP addresses that allow you to mask your identity and your location and really do distribute the attack across the United States if you're targeting a US vendor, or EMEA if you're targeting a EMEA-based vendor, so on and so forth. Toolkits, commercially available toolkits are out there allowing you to easily put together your attack. Predefined configurations, attack configurations exist in these toolkits for many of the popular streaming sites or retail sites. Sneaker bots are quite common, that type of thing. And then the behavior. The behavior is what happens as the attacker meets resistance or as the attacker retools in order to find a different vector to get into your environment. Couple of examples. I already mentioned this, but I'll go into it a little bit more detail. In 2019, Cequence discovered a vulnerability in WebEx and in Zoom. We disclosed the vulnerability to the vendors and they fixed it in one way or another. What the vulnerability was it is an enumeration attack where automation was used to discover valid meeting IDs. And then if the meeting ID was valid, the attacker was able to surreptitiously join the meeting. And it was because the API was exposed and there were no password or security functionality assigned to those APIs. And more commonly than not, the end users had chosen not to enable security when they were using the web conferencing application. Another example is one where we saw a financial services organization being targeted with an account takeover attack that in some cases resulted in theft. Here, the case was the attackers deconstructed the mobile application to find the login APIs. They then executed the login, the attack, and when a valid user was found, They were able to use the OFX, which is the Open Funds Transfer Protocol. It's the standard funds transfer protocol across the financial services industry. They were able to use that protocol to immediately transfer funds. Now, we were able to discover this attack and block it, but the important piece here is that it was all executed across APIs. So when we look at the entire API security landscape, it actually can be pretty confusing. The API security is a very generic term. You ask 5 people and you're going to get 5 different definitions of what API security is. And there are a range of different offerings. API gateways, everyone is probably familiar with what an API gateway is. It's AWS Gateway, it's Apigee, it's MuleSoft, it's Kong. These products provide great visibility and management for your APIs, but they lack the ability to protect against automated attacks and possible data leakage. So they do a great job of doing the basic allow or deny, but you really don't get the automated attack protection that I described earlier. Web application firewalls do perform some API level security, but more from the vulnerability perspective. They're looking for traditional exploits. They're not looking at the volumetric attacks that are common characteristics of automated attacks. Service mesh and ingress controllers, likewise, they're much like the API gateways. They do perform a valid and much needed function of management and visibility, but they really don't give you the ability to protect against a high volume attack. And then a similar argument could be made, or a similar statement could be made around the API security point products. These products are looking more at the development side of the APIs, validating the appropriate specs are being used, looking for possible vulnerability holes that could be exploited, much like a WAF would. But they really don't do any runtime security protection against automated attacks, looking for that automated attack against an API that has been deployed to support my login application. So let's get to the meat of the matter. Let's talk about the key considerations for protecting APIs from automated attacks. First recommendation, really you do need to understand your exposure. I'm a big fan of the term knowledge is power. Now, knowing exactly what is happening in my network environment or my application environment is a very powerful tool for security professionals to actually take action. You can't take action against something that you don't know is happening. So really understand what you have from a public-facing application perspective. You've got web applications out there, you've got mobile applications out there, and APIs. So what is your exposure? Many organizations really don't know how many APIs they have. They might have a good handle on the web applications and the mobile applications, but they don't have a good handle on the number of APIs. Are those APIs protecting assets of value? When I talk about assets of value, is my financial services account behind that? Is my airline miles behind an API? That type of thing. Who owns the APIs? Again, here too, the API, the change in the development methodologies has distributed application creation across many groups. They've been given some autonomy, all great for productivity, but from a security and visibility perspective, it causes problems. You don't know who owns those APIs, the mobile applications, and what the API deployment process is. So really understand all of these questions to gain a better handle on what your security exposure is. Second recommendation, as you're moving towards an offering, don't make sure that you avoid what I would call a silo-based approach. The security point products for each problem, I should say. So if you're an organization that is holding assets of value behind that public-facing application, then make sure that those assets are protected from automated attacks. Is the mobile application and the web application and the APIs, are they all protected in the same manner? You want consistency against those attacks. If you're able to protect the web and mobile applications with only one type of application, or one type of security product, I should say, you want to be able to make sure that the APIs are protected in the same manner. In many cases, they are different in functionality, and they are inconsistent in their protection of APIs. What I'm talking about there is the vendors themselves are inconsistent in the protection of APIs. Consistency is key there because it's going to close some of the holes that might be exposed with inconsistent product functionality. Friction can be obviously be a detrimental thing when it comes to security and application development productivity. Most developers view security folks as the team of Dr. No. They're not going to let you do certain things with your applications. When it comes to APIs, that's especially important. APIs are, as I mentioned, stateless in nature, so they're harder for a security team to protect. So it's important that your protection solution that you choose to stop automated attacks helps developers move forward more quickly or maintain their productivity. You want to be able to automatically protect those APIs and the applications they support as they are deployed. You don't want to inject some type of instrumentation or cookie collection or SDK into the development process in order to get the telemetry needed to understand if an automated attack is occurring. And as always, really, it's important for security and development to be in partnership, not at constant odds with each other. It is not going to help increase or improve your security posture. Avoid black boxes. So when I talk about black box, do you have full access to the functionality that the security solution offers? Or do you have to make a phone call or call a managed service in order to get access to it, or to have that team run a query in order to give you the data that you need? On one hand, it might be beneficial to offload some of that operational burden on that managed service, if you will. But when it comes to an automated attack that is hitting your website on Black Friday, and you're a retailer, and the success of your sale is in jeopardy, you want to make sure that you have fingertip access to the data that you need to be able to modify and tweak the policies. And you want to be able to deploy the offering wherever possible, or into the environment that is most suited for your security requirements. It might be a SaaS offering, it might be a public cloud offering, it might be a data center deployment, or it might be a combination of all of the above. Knowledge is power, as I mentioned. Use it to take action and improve your security posture. Consider the broader picture. When I say the broader picture, what I'm talking about here is it dovetails into the previous two slides. You want to be able to make sure that you're not choosing a point product that is very siloed based and has limited access to the data. You want to be able to take the findings from your automated attack protection offering and offload those findings to a Splunk or a log management or a SIM to do some additional analysis. You might want to send it to the forensics team for additional analysis. You might need to send it to an existing component of your security infrastructure for it to take action. You might want to send it to a WAF or to an inline firewall to take action against the IP addresses. You also want to be able to pull information in to enhance that information. User information, for example. If you have compromised user lists or third-party threat feeds, that information can be pulled into the product, should be able to be pulled into the product to enhance the security findings and overall enhance your security posture. So, when we talk a little bit about Cequence, we do address most all of these functions or requirements, I should say. We are not going to go into too much depth into what we do, but it is an AI-based approach that looks at APIs and web applications to understand the intent of the transactions. It is an agentless approach, meaning it doesn't require a JavaScript or an SDK to perform that function. So the security is consistent across all three types of application endpoints, web, mobile, and APIs. Extensible management gives you fingertip access to the data and the policies, and then the API-driven architecture allows you to import or export the data to enhance your security posture. We've been in business, as I mentioned, for about 5 years. Here are some results that we have achieved in 3 of our customers. The financial services customer, we're protecting 20 applications, primarily API-based applications, from account takeovers. Reduced the volume of account takeovers by up to 90%. Retail environment where loyalty points theft was the big problem. We are there to 16 different applications, reducing the volume of account takeover attempts by 90%. And then a social networking application, also protecting it against account takeovers. They are primarily an API-driven environment. Improved their efficacy of the protection of the 29 different applications by up to 6x. So we're delivering consistent security for all 3 types of applications for all of our customers. Don't take our word for it. You can start it today. You can sign up for a free trial, a free 30-day trial right now up on the website. This is our SaaS offering where we would redirect your traffic flow for the particular public-facing web applications to our SaaS environment. Perform some analysis and then give you the results. So check it out. It's no charge, 30-day free trial. And with that, we're going to wrap up. And thank you very much for your time.